Okay, well here I am in my shop and I'm going through some of my crashed airplanes. One of them I crashed, which is a 40 size Bigstick. This was the first airplane that me and Terry built together, and I've had it for over 5 years and flown it a lot. I actually did a dumb stick on this airplane, which means I made a mistake that cost me my airplane. What I did is I came into the end of the field in fairly windy conditions, and I flipped it inverted to make an inverted pass. And as I flipped it inverted, I tipped the nose down and the wind caught it, and it kind of startled me. And I made a huge mistake. Instead of going ahead and handling it inverted, which I could have probably done just fine, I went ahead and tried to flip it back upright. And in the process, there just wasn't enough room. So at a fairly decent speed, I hit the ground nose down, and I'll show you the rest of it here in a minute. The bottom line is the airplane didn't make it. This is the first one I've crashed in 5 years, and so I am really careful and I don't make very many mistakes. But on the rates on this airplane, I turn these way up. I really turn them way up to make it real acrobatic, and that's fine as long as everything's going real well. But if you do make a mistake, it's huge, because you've got a lot of control surface. So that's what happened. Well, you've got a lot of control throw, I guess is what I need to say. So that's what happened on this airplane, and one bites the dust. It's really not that big a deal. It's just part of the hobby. If you're not crashing a few airplanes, you're probably not flying much. And the only reason I haven't crashed hardly any planes in 5 years is because I'm just extra careful as a rule, and I check my airplanes out over and over and over, and that usually keeps me out of crashes. But anyway, I'm getting ready to disassemble all the parts that I think will be usable for other airplanes. So let me get down to it real quick. Now, all of this, everything that I take out, well, basically the servos and everything, I'm going to test and everything to make sure. But first of all, I'm going to take my control horns off. This little Ryobi drill is great. I just use it for everything. But now see these, my control horns, a lot of people wouldn't go to the trouble to take these out. I don't know, I actually build a lot of airplanes, and everything that I can keep that's usable, that'll build an airplane, I keep. And see, just like the back part of this, the rudder, most people would not go to the trouble to keep that. I actually am, because I might damage one on one of my other 40 size sticks, and I might need it. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the trouble to keep that piece. I may never use it, and I may need it tomorrow. So I'm just cutting the CA hinges with a hobby knife. Okay, that's part of my salvage right there. That's one piece of my salvage. Now, I am going to go ahead and pull my control rod out of my servo. This in, and I'm going to keep my control rods too. Actually, I will more than likely, well, I'll guarantee you that I will build another 40 size stick, because it's one of my favorite planes. 40 size and a 60 size stick is my favorite airplanes, because they're easy to build, they're durable, they're great airplanes. Anyway, the bottom line is, now this one's been a little bit. I may not end up using it. But some of this hardware will go right over onto a new model. Now I'll pull my servo. And of course, it's very important to check all your servos and really test them well. In other words, I'm going to have to hold against this and try to put some torque on it and try to make sure that it's not damaged, because it could very easily be damaged in a crash. Stripped gears and so on. Even if it did have stripped gears, I do keep all my bad servos, and the reason I do is because you might be able to fix another servo with it by using the gears and stuff. Now granted, a lot of the servos that I repair, I actually don't use on the control surfaces of other airplanes. I don't take that chance, but I will use them on a throttle, and I might use them on the flaps. I would use them for a bomb dropper device, to drop candy or stuff. That's what I would use them for. Anyway, here we go. Ailerons, I'm going to save them. Actually, this part of the wing, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep this. Now, I don't really do that much scratch building or anything like that, but it's kind of hard to explain. But let's say on a 40 stick, my next one, I damage this part of the wing or something, and I have to rebuild it. I could actually cut in here, cut this piece of the wing out, put this structure in the new one and just glue it up, cut this aileron out, put it on the new plane, and I would have a repaired airplane. So I'm going to I stick most of the parts that are semi-complete of crashed airplanes. Even of my buddies, I keep them. I put them out in my shop in case I could use them one of these days. I may never use them. They don't take up much room. It doesn't matter. Anyway, here we go. Servo number 2. The other wing. Anyway, this is exactly the same as the other one. So I'm going to go ahead and shut the camera off. I'll come back when I get this one through, and I'll bring the fuselage and what's left of it up here and start taking it apart, taking the good salvage pieces out of it. Okay, here's the fuselage of the 40 stick. Now I did already peel a fair amount of dirt out of the engine, because it did hit, of course, engine first. And now, as you can see, there's not much left of it, and there usually won't be in a crash. These planes are pretty lightweight. There won't be much left, but you do want to get everything you can out of them, because it's something you can use later on another airplane in most cases. So anyway, I'm going to start here by unhooking some of the control linkages from the servos. And of course that'll help me move pieces around. So first of all, I need to find an Allen wrench that will fit these, and normally have one out here. I think I know where it's at actually, right here. Okay. That's probably it. It is. Pliers to hold on to it. Now it'll be real important before I incorporate any of these pieces into another model to really check them over, because a lot of the servos can be damaged and it's kind of hard to tell if they're damaged. So you really have to really check them over. Sometimes it's hard to get these little screw locks off because I put so much Loctite in them, especially when it's bent at an angle like that, but it should come off. And I'm going to have to pull the, go ahead and pull the servo horn off of this one. And I don't know if you can see it. You can. Over here on the other side of the table, I'll try to zoom in on it a little bit, is my pile of stuff that I'm actually starting to amass that comes out of this airplane, which is a few things. But it doesn't look like much considering you're taking a whole airplane apart, but it's actually quite a bit of hardware. I'll have, you know, servos and a receiver and servo horns and linkages and control surface horns and quite a bit of stuff. And even things as small as your servo screws will come in very handy on another build. Now, I really need to clean my shop. I'm not going to show you right now. It's so messy because I've worked on so many things out here. It makes it a lot harder to work on your stuff when your shop's not clean. It just does. So I really need to clean it up, but I'm not going to right now. I'll try to get everything out of this airplane. And of course that control rod's stuck too. I might have overdone the Loctite on these, which is going to make it awful hard to get these little screw locks off. Now I will get them off before it's over. For now I'm just going to pull the servo horns, that way I can pull the servos out of my way here. And as you can see, this right here is a little piece of shrink wrap that I don't shrink, and I stick the end of my receiver antenna in that, and it's what that does, it keeps in an event of a crash, it won't pull the antenna out of the receiver. I used to mount these, I used to hard mount them to the side, and as you can see where the antenna was mounted broke loose from the airplane. So a friend of mine, Terry, taught me to put it in something like this, that way when it tears away it won't tear the antenna out of the receiver, which had happened to him in the past. A lot of this is trial and error. You learn as you go what to do and what not to do. And when somebody more experienced than yourself offers you some information, take time to listen to them, because they usually, just like that, can tell you something that will save you some grief later. Okay, trying to get the receiver out now. I put mine on with a bunch of Velcro. Alright. See, I broke some leads off right at the receiver. To get that, yeah, there we go. Okay. And of course I'll check the receiver over real good. They can be damaged in a crash. Really hit hard, a lot of things can be damaged, so take a lot of time before you put these into another airplane to check them out and make sure they're okay. Okay, well there that is, and I'm gonna go ahead and put the screws back in these. I've got lots of different servo horns for these, so I could replace the servo horns. I don't need the ones that are on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the screws back in them. And I'm actually going to leave these right here in this little box. Well, I say little box, little piece of ply that they were mounted in. I'm going to leave them there for now, and that's part of my salvage. Now, I need to get these screw locks off, because I really like these and I can reuse these if they're not damaged. And like I said, I might be overdoing the Loctite just a little bit, because those are awful hard to get off of there. And I can even save most of these push rods and stuff. I can save them and I can use them on other stuff if they're not bent up too bad. They're not damaged. A lot of this stuff doesn't really seem to be that important to save, but you'll really find yourself needing something when you're building an airplane. And a lot of times stuff, and of course I haven't had very many crashed airplanes to deal with, but I've been taught by my friends that a lot of times that hardware comes in real handy, so try to save everything you can that's savable. When you're dealing with a crashed airplane, it's really odd. For a while, you don't even want to fool with it. You just don't want to look at it. It's almost like if you do a fender bender on your car. You don't want to walk by it and look at it for a while because it hurts your feelings that you've got a bent fender on your car. Well, these are the same way. You look at them and you don't want to mess with them because it hurts your feelings every time you look at them. But it doesn't really matter. It's a big part of the hobby. If you're going to fly, you're going to crash. I've been real lucky. I haven't crashed much. But it does happen, and it's going to happen. So learn how to deal with it and get the best you can what you have to deal with. I'm trying to get all my Velcro removed. Anything I can remove. I don't usually use these switches, but I'm going to take them out anyway. Again, the little Ryobi drill with a good set of bits of every kind will save you a lot of time. They're worth their weight in gold. They really are. Alright. Switch. Cover. Okay. Let me see here. I'm going to move this over to the side. Try to get my engine off, which I actually broke my motor mount. That's real unusual. That thing hit hard to break your motor mount. So I won't have to keep the motor mount, but I will want to keep, everything on the motor mount. Let me see here. Get this. I use screw locks on this. Even I broke the propeller. The guy will really have to work at cleaning this engine up and check the engine out well, because it could have sustained some real damage in the process. Could have a real problem. I will clean that up later. But right now, I need to get some paper towels in here. I'm almost out of paper towels. For right now, I'm just going to set it to the side. I would normally clean the little area there that I would normally clean the hole in the carburetor. I would normally clean that out to make sure no dirt got down in it, but I'm out of paper towels. I'm going to have to go to the house and get some here in a little bit to do that. Anyway, there's that and that. Okay. Now, is what I'm going to salvage out of here is the fuel tank, which looks like it's going to come right out. I mount my holding block for my fuel tank. I mount it with a screw on all my airplanes, on anything that needs that. I always make all my fuel tanks removable. I make them removable because when you have problems with a fuel tank, it's a pain when they're glued in. So I just don't glue them in. I make a removable tank on everything, and always makes it easier. Makes it especially easier now. In this case, I just used a balsa block. Oh, I'm making a mess with the fuel. Let me go ahead and Anyway, I make a balsa block and I drill a hole in it and I use a screw and then I strengthen it up with a little bit of CA. Right now I need to find some paper towels. I'm going to have to use one out of the trash here. Mop up my mess that I'm making with my tank. This tank does not have much fuel in it, but it's got enough to make a mess. Anyway, be careful, it's real easy to damage these little tanks. I'm pushing it back through with a screwdriver, and that's my actual RX mount is in the way a little bit. Okay, there it is. And see, that's a very good piece to keep right there. That is my RX mount that I made for this airplane, and it's a really good piece to hold on to for later for a different airplane. Anyway, here we go. Fuel tank. It does have some fuel in it. It does have a lot of fuel in it. Shouldn't have quite that much. Anyway, I'm going to set it to the side. I'll have to drain it later. Okay, now, the motor mount is really no good. But all the hardware, the nose wheel's good. This is all good. And of course your bolts are good. Push rod. Nothing wrong with that push rod. Nothing wrong with this one. All be used later. And like I said, I'm going to actually build a 40 stick. That's an airplane I'll probably always have, no matter how many of these I crash. And that's actually probably the reason I crashed this airplane. I'm real comfortable with this airplane, and I would try things that I normally wouldn't try with other airplanes. My other airplanes, I just wouldn't try some of the stuff I would with a stick, so I'm far more likely to crash a stick. But it doesn't matter. That's what airplanes are for, to fly. You don't fly them, you won't crash them. But if you don't fly them and you don't crash them, you don't need to be in this hobby. You need to be in something else, remote control cars or something. Anyway, okay. Remove the motor mount here. And I'll keep these screws, and like I said, the motor mount's no good. So I'll actually just take the screws out of it, or the cap head screws, and I'll save them. And I'll show you something here. I can get the blind nuts out here in just a second. I'll show you how to do that. I save all the blind nuts also. They will come handy. They'll really come in handy on another build if you can save them. They're pretty easy to save. Anyway, I hope this part of the video is not getting boring. I'm just a process. I was wanting to show you pretty well what you're going to end up saving off of an airplane from a crash. Anyway, there's that piece. I will take it apart later. I'll basically just take the nose wheel assembly out of the motor mount, and I'll take the bolts out. But anyway, here's how you get your blind nuts out. You take one of your bolts, and I've got a little hammer over here if I can find it. Yeah, here it is. And you screw them in there a little ways. You have to screw them in there a little ways, and then you tap the blind nut out. Okay. Now you have to pull it back up to unthread it, to make the little teeth catch so you can unthread it. Okay, and that's one. That will be right in this area. And of course my foam, I normally would say that's actually no good. Okay, and you just keep doing that until you get all the blind nuts out. These blind nuts really come in handy. Now make sure they're not stripped or anything. Something fell out of there. I don't know what. Piece of wood. Okay. There's one more. Okay. And one more. Okay. Next up, I'll be removing the landing gear and some of the control rods out of the back of the fuselage there. Anyway, pretty well covered this. I'll come back here in a minute when I start on the fuselage. No, the back of the fuselage.